I remember the moment really clearly for me. It was late summer, August, before my sophomore year. Um, I had a girlfriend. I was playing D1 basketball. Um, I was able to get the older guys to buy me alcohol. Um, and I had just gone to my favorite rock band, U2. I went to a concert like I'd had all my dreams come true. And late August, just deep down in my soul, um, the immorality with my girlfriend weighed on me with guilt, and everything else was unsatisfying. And I didn't really know where to turn. I often think it's like the Solomonic moment I had, uh, where what I was doing wasn't really fulfilling. I didn't really know where I was going, and I needed to turn somewhere. A lot of people end up with that kind of feeling, trying to mask it with drugs, alcohol, or various substances, experiences. In one sense, I just didn't know what I was living for, and I could really tell I was trying all these things. That might be you. You might be watching us today, might be thinking through your life, and you deep down are asking this question: what do I have to get up for? Like, what's getting me out of the bed in the morning? What am I doing? All these things I've been pursuing, uh, they are not doing it for me. They are not helping me find purpose and meaning in life. What we want to talk about today is um, finding meaning and purpose. And meaninglessness and purposelessness show up in all kinds of ways in our world, and we're trying to do all kinds of things about them. So if you're listening today and you're not really sure what you're getting up for, we want to give you some good news about that. Today on Reframed, we're going to talk about finding meaning and purpose. We're going to kick off a short series on that. I've got Brian Sayers here. He's one of the pastors at Faith Bible Church. Hey, Brian.
Hey.
And Brian, where do you serve in the church here? And
I'm the associate pastor of counseling at Faith Bible and do a lot of equipping and counseling and training.
And I'm a pastor at Faith Bible Church, and I'm an avid conversationalist on an airplane. I like conversations on airplanes, and I talk to a lot of people about what gives them meaning and purpose, and get to bring it to the gospel of Jesus Christ. We want to do that today as we talk about meaning and purpose. If we were to ask you this question, do you know why you get out of bed in the morning? What would you say? What drives you? And this first episode, we want to talk about what gets you out of bed, but you have to ask a couple of questions first. Who am I? So who am I? How do we know who we are? And we're going to talk about some of those most important questions. I will resist, for your sake, singing any of Jean Valjean's "Who Am I" from Les Mis, but the questions asked all the time: Who am I? And what do we want to, how do we think about that? So, Brian, what are some of the most common ways over history? Let's stretch all the way back over history, how people have tried to find who they are. What are some of the ones, ancient history, because we're guys with Bible backgrounds, contemporary history? What are some of the most common things that we see?
Well, probably just the concept of success. I want to be successful. And I mean, if you're a ruler, I want to be a well-loved king. If you're an engineer, I want to build something amazing and fantastic that will, marvel, be a marvel to everyone. I want to build the eighth wonder of the world.
Yeah, a craftsman in his village might have thought the same thing.
Sure.
How do I be successful?
Yeah.
With those kind of things.
I'd say throughout the ages, that's one that's probably lasting, right? So
right.
Success, and when we don't have the success that we want, desire that we pursue, that we pour our life and heart into, when that failure faces us, then we just go, well, what's the point? That's where we hit that wall of feeling like our life is meaningless.
Yeah, and it's so natural. We all just filled out brackets for 64 teams. Like we're in the end of March Madness as we're recording this, and teams that I've not followed all year and that I've not cared about all year are on my bracket, and I have picked them to win. And I suddenly care. And if they win, I feel like I have achieved something. Doesn't everybody do that? Like that's how tight it is
The
into
grand achievement of the lucky guess.
of the lucky guess. Yeah, that is definitely definitely one of them. So then you lose, and now my life is meaningless. I can't believe it. I lost. People have they riot over losses because it's success and failure. So tied into us. Another one's pleasure and pain. Like
Sure.
I get up out of bed in the morning because, and what I think about is how to feel good, how to avoid pain, or sometimes like my life is identified by my pains. The older you get, the more often that's the thing.
Sure.
How do we see that history unfolds? Bible talks about seeking pleasure, seeking pain. How do we see that as a driver in today's
Yeah, I mean
culture?
that's a theme in Ecclesiastes, right? Solomon sought after every kind of pleasure and whim, and at the end of the experience of every pleasure, from I mean, wine, women, and song, right? He that's kind of
Yeah,
what he did, and at the end of all of that, he's like, vanity, vanity. I've found this to be empty, to be meaningless.
yeah.
This can't be the purpose for which I'm here. So we've got certainly that little biopic in the opening couple of chapters of the book of Ecclesiastes that proves forever that the pursuit of pleasure is not going to be the source of meaning in life.
But nobody wakes up in the morning hoping to feel bad.
No.
So they might literally be thinking, I want to do something today that's fun, enjoyable, pleasurable. How do I get to it? Is the coffee pot ready to go? Is the whatever else is going to kind of get me through the aches and pains of life? Do I have it?
I
Uh,
mean, and on the other side, the other end of that pendulum is the person who wakes up every day who is in chronic pain or perhaps is dealing with a terminal illness, and they're not able to do the things that they used to do, and they're having trouble finding, well, what is my meaning? I can't do this, I can't do that. I'm in this constant pain, and what's the purpose for me being here, right? Which is why over time, I think you see a trend toward euthanasia, where people who are older, or weak, and have terminal illnesses, and in places like Canada and Europe, euthanasia has become very common.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We recently watched a movie where that was the main theme. The guy was living his best life, had a tragic accident. He said to his mom, "I'll give you a year, and then I'm going to pull the plug."
Mm,
And the movie was about how she tried to convince him through a girlfriend to live, and he didn't. Like that's the thing.
yeah,
Like I want to escape the pain. Uh, I'll talk to people in chronic pain. At the pastoral level, we see and pray for people in pain all the time. And it is really discouraging to not
yeah,
be able to do good things that you want to do. And so people have to think, who am I if I'm suffering with chronic pain? That's a
yeah.
really pointed one. Uh, as we thought about this a little bit, historically, people have found out who they are based on their societal role. I mean, up until 1800, you were a peasant or a nobleman. You were a slave or you were free. You belonged in a class. If it was some of the Eastern cultures, like an Indian culture, you were in a caste system, and who you were was defined sort of for you by where you were born and kind of the role you would have, and you would never think about that. There's still quite a bit of that today. Who you are is your role. Are you able to be free to do what you want? So the sell, let's say from the network marketer, is do you want to be a free independent businessman, not bound by anybody else's rule? So
Exactly.
here's how you could earn a lot of wealth with very little time. because I want to be free from the other status. So um, today, that role, like the desire, is to be independent, but to be free from those others. But people still have it. I love my role as a dad, as a grandpa, as a husband. I love it. I love my role. Am I identified in it? A little bit, and I would say joyfully. But there can be an element where identifying that and add that to success or failure, just throw into it, am I a good dad? Or am
Mm.
I a good husband? Or am I good? You add one of those to it, you add reputation to it, and that can be a recipe for trouble. Um, any thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
very interesting. Just last night, Michelle and I watched the Downton Abbey movie, which was sort of like the end of the series,
Yeah,
so to
yeah,
speak, and that is actually the theme of the entire movie, is that people in certain social classes could do things or could be in other people's presence, and then people once you were in a different social class, you could not do that, and so this family, in the show, they invited a former doorman to come up into a social setting where everyone else was in, coat and tails, and he had a tie and a jacket, but the fact that he was from a different social class was, everyone kind of gasped, kind of was uncomfortable, and of course, there's the dynamic between here's this noble family, lord and lady, and they actually become friends with all their serving staff, which is just kind of unheard of,
right.
right? And so that's sort of the theme of that whole show is kind of trying to break
Yeah,
down the fact that our identity should not be in whether or not we're a peasant, a servant, a lord, a lady, or from the noble class, etc. So,
yeah. We have first class seats in planes
hmm,
or on trains, um, and they put a little curtain
yeah,
between you so that you don't have to see the good food that they're getting. We're thankful for first class buyers because they make us regular people, we have cheap seats because of it. But that's a real thing. People take their identity based on the role that they can achieve. In American culture, you can achieve a new role, so you can climb the social ladder or the financial ladder, or the great evil in our culture is that you can't. So you are stuck in poverty. You're stuck in injustice. So the justice injustice theme is in our culture almost always tied to uh, are you mobile or not to move up? So
mm,
definitely your role, usually based on financial status and ability and freedoms, is really huge. There's always been the idea of reputation. I am what people think of me. So I, we there's words for them like people pleasers, man fearers. Um, Christian, non-Christian alike have these thoughts of how well regarded they are, and of course, social media panders to it. How many likes you get, how many things, um, how interested somebody might be, but my reputation often identifies me, and it's tied to guilt and shame.
mm,
So, guilt or shame. Shame is the feeling of embarrassment for something that you are or something that you have done, and that's your guilt and shame sensor are deep down markers of who you are. Those are all really old, like they've been around since the beginning of time. Some newer ones have to do with I am my biology, like the materialist view. Who are you? Well, I am just a collection of biological markers. How do you see that impact how people are living today?
yeah. Those some of those things like are my gender identity. They even call it gender identity, right? And I think there are other things where defining who I am today based on biology, for instance, trauma, the the idea of the body keeping the score in some unchangeable kind of way, not really helpful. Now we're getting kind of down into the weeds of what is my identity, and then people often find purpose and meaning by grabbing that identity and becoming an activist for that cause, whatever it might be, whether it's advocating for the abused, which is a noble thing. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying when we find our entire meaning and purpose in something, or becoming a political activist for the LGBTQ community, that that's super common, or just
A political activist for anything,
for anything, right?
like this here is this ideal to live for, and now I want to do that. Of course, we can search for that. In some sense, that's probably the deepest thing that we want
Right.
is an ideal to live for.
Sure.
And so
And
that'd be one expression.
and I'm gonna stop and be fair. Like, swing the pendulum the other way. We don't want to be a wild activist for conservatism, right?
Right.
We want to be advocates for the gospel of Jesus Christ and the glory of God. And so, um, again, there are causes I feel strongly about and that I'm going to advocate for and speak out and up for, but I'm not going to find my meaning in it.
Right.
That, I think, is the key. Like, it can be a cause that's important to me that I can speak to, but then I rest my identity and my meaning is
Yeah.
in something much, much deeper and much more eternal.
Yeah. So we've hit a bunch of the basics. Gender. You just
And we're probably going to unpack a few of those over the coming weeks.
Yeah. So let's go back to some of those. Let me think about a story when it comes to the success and failure. A couple of Olympics back, there were a couple of divers who I think they dove in college for Purdue, which is really close to a church that we know about. And they were the pairs divers, like the synchronized diving, and they got the silver, and which was super exciting. They got the silver, but if you're an American, silver doesn't really matter. It's gold. Like, unless you get gold, then you're still, silver is first place loser. That's kind of an American mentality. So they got interviewed, and the gal, basically says, "What did you think of this?" And they both said this: "Our identity is not in a gold or a silver or a bronze medal or our placement. Like, when we dive, we consciously think about our identity not being in the outcome." And I mean, it was interesting because it was like NBC Sports who was interviewing. Our identity is in Jesus Christ. So we just watched another Olympic set in the Winter Olympics, and so the success and failure. I mean, that's all the Olympics is about. So a skater who's supposed to win it all locks up in the middle of a performance he has done 100 times, and he's aced 100 times, and that's the news. He failed. You can tell the identity is wrapped up in that. Success or failure is really common, and there's some answers. Let's go back to the "who am I" question to see where we could get a healthier identity, and start with the "who are we." Let's turn it to the gospel, and we'll use some of these examples. And over the next couple of weeks, we can talk about some of these identity issues. But if I'm trying to figure out why I get out of bed in the morning, it might be really important to know who I am and what I'm here for. And the Bible has answers for that. The Bible's had answers for that from the beginning of time. And the Bible has given us meaning, purpose, an eternal cause to live for. So this is a really great place to go. Is that it's produced the best character, the kind of influencers in world history. It's easy to chart. So who does the Bible say we are?
Yeah, I mean, at the very beginning, God creates Adam and Eve in the image and likeness of himself. Mankind, male and female, created to image God on the earth. So we bear resemblance to God in all the ways that he can communicate his character and attributes to us. We share those, and we have been created to bring glory to him in everything. So Paul, 2 Corinthians 5 says, "Whether I'm alive or dead, my aim is to be pleasing to him, to do and be everything that God has called me to do and be." And that's how we reflect the image of God. So ultimately, that needs to be our meaning. Now, what does that look like if you're a peasant or a king,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That that becomes difficult.
So, but let's stop there. If you're listening, you have almost undoubtedly said this or heard this. I want to live for something that is bigger than myself.
Hmm.
I want to be part of something that's bigger than myself. Non-Christians, Christians, all have that impulse. So why what Brian says is so important is because God and the demonstration of all of who he is and his relationship with people is the greatest. It's the biggest. It's the best. I was asked by some little kids last night about why God made so many stars and planets, and because we can never see them. Like,
Hmm.
why would he make all this stuff if we could never see them? I said, because he enjoys it. It's just a joy to him to make. He's so much bigger, so much grander, and his purposes are so much greater. Imaging, reflecting back, is the greatest cause you could have. It's the greatest purpose to be alive because he is the greatest and what he is doing is the greatest. If you want to be part of that, be part of the one who is the greatest. So that we're essentially made as image bearers, which
Right.
which gives us the most significant purpose for it. What else would you tie to that?
Because Ecclesiastes, which we mentioned earlier, is really Solomon's pursuit of meaning and purpose, where trying to find it in things that are only earthly, he ends up saying, vanity, vanity, everything's vanity. It's meaningless. It's like the fog that burns off. I can't get my arms around it. I can't capture it. He says at the very end, the conclusion, this is Ecclesiastes 12:13. The conclusion, when all has been heard, is fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. So fearing God, keeping his commandments, that's live your life in reverent worship of the God who owns you and loves you. Fear God. That's a reverent worship. Keep his commandments. He has created you to reflect his glory. We reflect his glory by living as he's called us to live. That's the keeping the commandments. There's a real simplicity to that, which again you can do if you're a peasant or a king or an engineer or a nurse or a teacher or a garbage man, or it doesn't really matter what you do. You can fear God and keep his commandments. I think of Jesus, at the baptism, God the Father thunders down from heaven, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." So what had Jesus done up to that point? He had just been a son who, for 3 days abandoned his parents and freaked him out when he was 12. But he had been a son, he had been a carpenter, he had been a sibling. That's about all we know of him, right? Is
Right.
this not Jesus, the son of Mary? We know his siblings, right? And as a carpenter's son, he more than so. What was he? He was just a member of a family who worked as a carpenter, but who feared God and kept his commandments. And there's simplicity and hope in that for us to find meaning in what on the surface may feel mundane and yet is of eternal significance when we attach it to living a life of reverent worship for God and reflecting his image by keeping his commandments.
So yeah, that there's a great freedom in those realities. Like that can help me look at whatever I'm facing and whatever role that I'm in. The reality of the biblical record and what we see in humanity is from Genesis 3, mankind has tried to self-identify the purpose. The first temptation is you will be like God,
Mm.
knowing good from evil. So you can stand in the place of God. You can choose right or wrong for yourself. You can choose your purpose for yourself. And that has brought enmity, judgment from God. And it always ends up in a miserable place, not just because of the punishment from God, but because it's out of sorts with where we are created. So anytime we try to self identify a purpose apart from God, It always caves in. It always crashes in. I mean, I could think of one of the modern issues with self-identifying or self-determining a person's gender. It used to be you had gender and sex was the same thing. Now there's a biological and there's an internal. When you step aside and maybe you're listening and you're at this place where you said, "Okay, I've tried to self-identify. Uh, I have to do so much. I have to take the meds. I have to have either the surgeries. I have to navigate in a world." Um, when you run cross grain from God's creative purposes, it's going to end up crashing in. That's first sin, and then second, it's the trouble. And that again is what Solomon is getting at,
Mm.
because Solomon tried to pursue all kinds of things. Something like 1,000 wives, wasn't exactly 1,000 wives, but something like that. And he thought that all the sexual pleasures and all those things would fill his meaning cup. And in the end, he says, meaningless, meaningless. So lots of people have tried it over history. But here's the good news about the gospel is Jesus came identified as the son that the Father loves, in full submission to the Father for a purpose of paying for the sin at the deepest level. I want to run my own life and I want my own identity, paying for that sin, and then offering forgiveness. You've said before, when you were first open to the gospel, like finally what tipped you over to trusting the gospel had to do with guilt. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, just living a hedonistic life, particularly from the time I was about 18 to 20, in college, just living for myself, but had enough influence from Christian neighbors and a church that was in the area that I grew up in, or I went to at Sunday school and later as a teen, knowing this life is not a life that pleases God, and actually resolving time and time again that I was going to stop living this way because I knew it was wrong. So to me, it was just living a life that I knew was wrong, and waking up the next day going, why did I do that again? It's just enslaved to sin. And so
Yeah.
it wasn't a pursuit of meaning as much as just knowing that my life was an affront to God, and just grasping for why am I so unable to do what I know God has told me I'm supposed to do, to be the person that I know God has told me I'm supposed to be. And finally, in his mercy, just reading Romans 5, 6, 7, and 8, realizing, yeah, I'm enslaved to sin because I don't have a relationship with him by the Spirit, and crying out for forgiveness and for the power from his Spirit to overcome sin. And he graciously, I believe, saved me. So,
Yet Jesus in John 17 gives this purpose. It's his last prayer with his disciples, and he's talked about his purpose and what he wants our purpose to be. He says, "Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that the Son may glorify you." Like there was those original image bearing. Like, I want to glorify you back. "Since you have given him authority over all flesh to give eternal life to all whom you have given him. And this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent." Eternal life in the Gospel of John is not primarily duration. It is primarily a quality life with the eternal God.
mm,
Like, it's full, robust. It is all things that meaning and purpose are wrapped around in. This is why he's come. And he wants us to know God in that way. He went to the cross to pay our burden of sin and guilt, to draw us back to that intimate relationship with God. That is the ultimate meaning and purpose as an image bearer. And when that happens, there's another identity marker that comes in 1 Corinthians 6:20 or others. I am not my own. I have been bought with a price.
mm,
So I belong to God, who is my creator. I belong to God, who is my savior and redeemer. And then he sets the course for the ultimate goal. So, you might be looking for meaning, purpose, and identity in a variety of ways. We're going to pick up a couple more of those next episode. But what we would encourage you to do is to say, for 2,000 years now, people have found the most fulfilling relationship, since often relationships are a big deal, in their Creator and Redeemer in Jesus Christ. And then He has a mission that is the greatest cause to be a part of in the whole world, which is gathering more people into that relationship and to live for Him with meaning and purpose and righteousness and goodness in this world and prepare for a world to come. We would really encourage you to think about this. Who am I? Jean Valjean in Les Mis was like, well, I'm a prisoner. Actually, now I'm a businessman. I'm set free. But ultimately, even in that movie, it was grace and the grace of Christ that set him free to a new purpose and meaning. Even Victor Hugo had some sense of that from his sort of Christian worldview for it. And so we would encourage you to think about that. We need to talk about a couple more things, Brian, which we won't do today, but how do we get the information that gives us that? So we need to talk about, who am I? What is truth? And then how does truth affect these other things where we put our identity in the wrong thing? And then how do we put our identity in the right thing? So if you have questions, thoughts, we'd love to hear them. The notes will go out. You can ask questions in the comments. We would love to connect you to a people who's found an identity and a purpose. Faith Bible Church, if you're listening to us from some other place, we would be happy to connect you with the community. That's a third episode that we're going to do is I feel so alone. So add meaninglessness to not knowing where to go, to this isolation lots of people feel. We would love to connect you into Faith Bible Church and help you find meaning, purpose, truth, a family connected to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching this episode of Reframed. If it helped you shift your perspective on this issue, check out the links in the description for more resources. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment to let us know what topics you'd like us to reframe next. If you're here in Spokane, we would love to see you at Faith Bible Church. Services are at 8:30 and 10:30 a.m. every Sunday. You can find all the details at fbchurch.org. And if you're watching from somewhere else, we hope you'll get connected with a gospel-centered church in your area. There's a link below to help you find one. We'll see you next time on Reframed.